Welcome to the Chat Box. I'm Emily Regalado, and this is my co-host,
Hannah Algie.
Let's dive into the wonderful world of books. So we're here to bring you a weekly book club experience. Every week we will dive into one book that we have read.
This week we'll be talking about the thriller Just the Nicest Couple, and then we'll follow that with a surprise highlight of a book series. But first, let's get into Just the Nicest Couple.
All right, Hannah, so I actually have yet to read Just the Nicest Couple, so can you give me like a rundown, quick little synopsis about what it's about?
Yeah, for sure. So Jake goes missing, and his wife, Nina, is trying to find him throughout the whole book, and Nina's friend Lily, who she teaches with at the same school, thinks that she is involved somehow in the disappearance. She was the last one to see him, and Lily's husband, Christian, is trying to help Lily cover it up and cover her tracks, so that way Lily doesn't get pinned for anything if Jake is found, and when or if he is found alive or dead. So it just goes through that. So it's told from both point of views. It's told from Nina's point of view and Christian's point of view. So you get to see both sides of her trying to find him and him trying to cover up Lily's mistakes that she may or may not have made.
Okay, and then, so if you had to put this in a genre, you would say it's like a thriller?
Yeah, it's definitely a thriller. I would say it's more on the like mysterious side of a thriller, but it's definitely a thriller. It was really interesting, and there was a lot of twists and turns like most thrillers have.
Okay, and then, so like if you had to make a pro and cons list, like what would be the pros and what would be the cons?
Yeah, so my favorite thing is the two point of view thing that a lot of authors do. So I feel like you kind of get the full picture of the story since you get both sides of the story. And it definitely keeps you guessing throughout the book. And then for cons, I would just say there's some times when you question, like, this could not actually happen, and it kind of takes away from the story because you're like, these decisions that the characters are making are obviously, like, so absurd that this would not happen in the real world. So it kind of, like, pulls you out of, like, being in the story.
Yeah, and I feel like that's not a good thing for a thriller to do because you want to be on the edge of your seat when you're reading. You want to feel like you're right there with them. So but if you had to like rate it out of like 5 stars, what would you rate it?
Yeah, I give it 4 stars. I thought it was really good. It definitely wasn't my favorite thriller, but it also, I pretty much give every book 4 stars, but I really liked it. I thought it was a really good thriller, and I pretty much read it in one sitting, so it was definitely worth the read for sure.
Okay, I think it's time then that we get into our book series that we're going to highlight this week, and it's going to be the Knock 'Em Out series.
Yeah, Emily, I have not read this series yet, so can you tell me a little bit about it?
So the Knock 'Em Out series is a series I started reading last year, and I didn't finish until this semester, and basically it's a romance series with a little bit of like mystery in it. So there's like an overarching mystery that goes on in all 3 of the books. It basically is called the Knock 'Em Out series because it happens in a small town called Knock 'Em Out. And it is told just like your book from 2 different perspectives. So each book has 2 new characters and their perspectives. So basically each of these characters live in this small town, and they're all like connected. They're like friends or like siblings. So that's like really interesting because you get to like see those different dynamics.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's pretty much what it's about.
Okay, so is there any like overarching like plot that kind of happens throughout all 3 books?
So the overarching plot is that someone in the book gets severely injured
In the first book?
in the first book,
Okay.
and they throughout the rest of the first, the second, and the third are trying to find out who did it, where they are, and how to get revenge.
Okay.
So although each book has like a really big romance in it, and that's like the main thing, the underlying thing is that mystery of who did it.
Yeah.
So it's
That
pretty
sounds
juicy.
really interesting. What did you think about the book, like pros and cons wise?
So like a pro is definitely being able to get into each of the characters' perspectives like really in depth, since we're able to get 6 different characters' perspectives in this series. And like that's something I really appreciate as a reader, because then I'm able to understand the characters better. Like there's some characters that I at first didn't like that when I read on, I started to understand them and then like them and even become like my favorite characters. But if I had to like give some cons, I would say the sheer length of the books.
I think that's what's turned me away from reading it for so long, is because it's so
like
long.
I think the longest book is
Looks like the 3rd.
the 3rd one.
Yeah.
Let's see how many pages this is.
Yeah,
I think it's
they are
like
pretty long books for
600 pages.
Yeah.
So it's long, but I
Times
think it's
3.
worth it. I think it's worth it. Once you
Yeah.
get to the third book, which is my favorite book, like you'll see, it's worth it.
Mm-hmm.
But
What
if I
was
had
your
to rate it,
Yeah, what was your rating?
if I had to rate it, this is kind of hard. I would give it a 3.5 just because I did start it last year and then it was so long I didn't get back into it
Yeah.
until this year. So 3.5.
Yeah, that's one thing about series that's hard is like you kind of get sick of it when they're that long.
Right, and
But-
you get like kind of like bored of the characters.
Yeah.
You want like a change,
Yeah.
but when you get
But you
back
still
into
liked
it,
it.
yeah,
Yeah,
3.5
good.
is good.
Good. I'm glad you liked it.
All right. So that's pretty much all for this week's edition of the book club. We'll leave you to your reading. I'm Emily Regalado.
And I'm Hannah Algie, and we'll see you next time on the chat box.